You don't want to speak European Portuguese? Well, of course you do. The point is, it makes more sense to first focus on the listening, because think about it. Even if you have some words that you've learned, memorized from an app, you have some basics of the grammar, if you cannot say them because you don't know how, and you cannot understand when you hear those words, then what's the use? So what I'm going to do today is give you three strategies of how you can tackle that listening part of European Portuguese, because I know it's not super clear, yet it's very logical. Now, I'm Catarina. This is a language Unschool. I help foreigners feel comfortable speaking Portuguese in an out of the box way, holistic kind of thing. So here we go. Okay, strategy number one is essentially focusing on the how. So understanding how we speak is key. Other than the individual tricky sounds of Portuguese that certainly you need to master if you're not used to making them, because in your native language or other languages, you know, it's something new. Now, certainly focus on that. But then the first thing to learn is understanding what I like to call the queen of Portuguese. So I call Portuguese a monarchy as a language. Of course, it's just a metaphor. What this means is knowing that the stressed syllable is in the penultimate syllable of every word in Portuguese is key to understanding why you hardly hear most of the word. So it's not going to be at the end unless signaled otherwise. If you think of this very long word, otorrinolaringologista, super long, intimidating. If you ever have to go to a ear, throat, whatever doctor or whatever you call it in English, it's going to be like, I'm not going to go because I don't know how to pronounce it. Now, if you know that, if you break it down into syllables, otorrinolaringologista, you say it in a robotic way, and then take the last one out, you know that it's the gish that we're going to focus more. I'll say it again. Otorrinolaringologista. That's the part you hear the most. Again, otorrinolaringologista. Now, lucky you, because we're not that crazy to go about pronouncing such long words. This is not German. What we actually do, we shorten it to otorrin. And still, you will hear otorrino more, because that's, again, the penultimate syllable. Now, very short explanation. Second thing is to know there's three things that happen to letters in Portuguese. First one is that they change, exactly like we people do. So if I'm next to someone who's really annoying, I become annoyed. Maybe I'm annoying as well as a result. So if you have, and there's letters that are particularly sensitive to this, so the M, the N, the S, and the Z, watch out for those because they will change according to who's next to them. I'll just give you one example with the S. Normally you have not sapato, saia. Saia. It's an S sound, just like in English, many other languages, no big deal. But then if it comes at the end of a word, saias, then you have a sh sound instead. Okay? Now, if you get another word following it, which starts with a vowel, A-E-I-O-U, that's a vowel, then you get saias amarelas. Saias amarelas, you get a Z sound instead. Just a quick demonstration here. Now, another thing that happens that we're very notorious for, I keep hearing, yeah, you guys swallow words and letters. I call that the vanishing phenomenon. So what happens is certain letters will just not be pronounced. And why do we do that? Because that's, first of all, not where the queen is hiding. So why should we? It's not needed for understanding each other. And the other thing is knowing which letters that happens. So one of them is O, and you have the typical example of obrigado, obrigado. If you're learning how to pronounce the word slowly, you will hear obrigado. That's one thing, but in real life, people will say obrigado. So you don't hear the end. So watch out for O's at the end of words. The other letter that gets dropped a lot, that vanishes, is the E. So you have K. You have three letters, yet you have the sound K. It's one sound only. Now, I could compare it with the word Q, but I'll leave it for another time. I think you get the point. And consequently, this leads me to the last one, the last phenomenon, the last thing that happens with letters in Portuguese, which is they get married. Exactly, they do. Because if something drops from one side, then they just get closer to whoever is next to them. They don't want to be alone. It's almost like naked, I don't know. So this happens, one example would be, so if the E dropped out of K and you have an il afterwards, you have two vowels. One you don't even pronounce, the other one is exactly the same. And even if it were, it doesn't matter. What happens is kill. I'm not going to pronounce il. It's too robotic. It takes a lot of effort. It's just quicker, more practical. So kill. I could even say kiel, so I add an extra sound in there, but I don't want to confuse you too much. Just know that they get married. Another very famous case where that happens is when we have two A's, one at the end of a word and one at the beginning of the next one. So a typical phrase you're going to be saying around, hopefully not in English, but in Portuguese, is I am learning Portuguese, estou a aprender português. Now, I have to make a pause there, it's so annoying and not needed. What we do is estou a aprender português, estou a aprender português. We combine the A's, we make it a very open and slightly longer A, okay? Now, if you want more of a detailed video about how this happens, let me know in the comments so that I can prepare that for you. Okay, but once you understand how we speak, obviously you want to expose yourself to more content, right? Listen more. There's no way around it. I can't open your brain and fill in automatic understanding of the way we speak. So understanding the concept, it's certainly important, but now it's exposing yourself more to that content. And content, I don't mean necessarily tailored for language learners, but tailored for any Portuguese person. I have a free resource in the description which you can download. It's called Mini-Tuga. Tuga is what we call ourselves, the Portuguese. And in it you will find 6 resources of native content in different media, different interests that you can start using today. You don't even have to live in Portugal to immerse yourself in the language and the culture, because it's all about the culture too. And with it, you should focus on content, which is not easy to find. That's why I prepared this resource, but within the Language Unschool we have a bigger version, longer version of the Tuga book, call it the Tuga book there, and it has more than 200 resources. Because finding audio alongside text is not easy to find for European Portuguese. You start Googling and you get only Brazilian results back. So in it you find at least 3 resources that have that, so audiobooks or maybe something you can watch that has a transcript, not a transcript, subtitles. So it's a great way for you to slowly, as an intermediary phase, watch or listen and read at the same time, okay? And then the more you do it, the more you start noticing, oh yeah, I would have read it this way, but the guy's always pronouncing it that way, okay? So it's not just for relax and read and understand what's being said, every word, because you have the transcript there. The idea is to help you in a transition phase understand, okay, I'm hearing something, but I'm seeing something else, because the gap between spoken and written Portuguese is quite big, hence the challenge of understanding how we speak. Now, once you're, okay, I've done it for a little bit, you feel like comfortable, you need a new challenge, which you certainly should push yourself always a bit more when learning a language. If you feel comfortable, it's a sign that, okay, I need to up my game a little bit. So then you start listening to native content, listening or watching, right? Without any subtitles, no text next to it, just the audio or the visuals, of course. And more in content that you like, because certainly that keeps you interested and it exposes you to the language more and more. Now, while doing this second and third phases, you should think other things you can do is perhaps read out loud and record yourself. Very uncomfortable, I know. I've done that. Every time I hear myself speaking Dutch, I'm like, who the heck is that? But it helps because you're not used to the sound of your voice in Portuguese. So if that is, it's confronting, but a good experience. Because you want to practice that before encountering a real person, okay? Second thing you can do is mimic people. And I would advise doing this with very dramatic sort of content, like soap operas is a great thing. And then not a whole sentence, but like a short expression, something, I don't know, opa, nem penses. If I say this and I even tilt my head back and you just try to do exactly the same with the same intonation, opa, nem penses. Yeah? And then from the intonation, you start getting a feel for what is it that I'm saying. And am I happy about it? Am I not? Am I upset? Am I being ironic? All these clues that language is not, after all, just in words. It's also in intonation, in body language. So I hope that was it. I hope you liked it. And até a próxima.